Do the Colorado Avalanche really think they can keep Martin Necas long-term when they need to save $17 million annually for Cale Makar's extension? Because a veteran NHL scout just told us he'd be shocked if Necas finishes the season in Denver. And guess who's circling as potential landing spots? The Toronto Maple Leafs and New York Rangers. Again, all right, folks, buckle up because we're diving into what could be one of the most fascinating trade sagas of the entire season. Martin Necas, the skill check forward who Colorado acquired from Carolina in what was supposed to be a long-term solution, might not even make it to the playoffs with the Avalanche. And the most intriguing part of this whole situation? The Toronto Maple Leafs and New York Rangers, the same two teams that pursued him when he was in Carolina, are reportedly back in the mix as potential destinations. This is a developing story with massive implications for the trade deadline, the UFA market, and the future of several franchises. So let's break down exactly what's happening and why Martin Necas might be on the move sooner rather than later. Let's start with a bombshell quote that's driving this entire conversation. A veteran NHL scout told reporters this week, "I'd be shocked if he finishes the season with the Avalanche, let alone stays in Colorado. That's not speculation. That's not rumor mongering. That's an experienced talent evaluator looking at Colorado's salary cap situation and reaching an inevitable conclusion. The math simply doesn't work for the Avalanche to keep Necas beyond this season, no matter how much both sides might want it to happen. Here's the fundamental problem. Cale Makar, the superstar defenseman who already has a Stanley Cup, a Conn Smythe Trophy, and a Norris Trophy on his resume, becomes an unrestricted free agent on July 1st, 2027. By that time, the NHL salary cap is projected to be around $113.5 million, and Makar is expected to command more than $17 million annually. Think about that for a second. $17 million per year for one player. That's Connor McDavid money. That's franchise-altering money. And it's money that Colorado absolutely has to pay, because you simply cannot let a player Makar's caliber walk away for nothing. According to Puckpedia, if Colorado doesn't re-sign any of their potential UFAs over the next two off-seasons, they'd have approximately $26.8 million in cap space entering free agency on July 1st, 2027. Now, $17 million of that immediately goes to Makar. That leaves less than $10 million to fill out the rest of the roster, re-sign other key players, and address needs. Where exactly does Martin Necas fit into that equation? The answer, according to our scout source, is that he doesn't. I don't see how the Avalanche make it work with Necas, the source said. They need to lock up Cale Makar next offseason, and even with the cap going up, where are they finding money to give Necas? So the real question for me right now is, does the Avalanche keep him as their own rental player for the playoffs at the trade deadline, or does he go to another team as a rental and sign an extension with them? That's the million-dollar question. Or should I say, the multi-million-dollar question. Necas is currently in the final year of a 2-year, $13 million contract with an annual cap hit of $6.5 million. His next deal will almost certainly be more expensive, potentially in the $8 to $10 million range depending on how this season goes. Colorado simply cannot afford that kind of commitment when they need to preserve every possible dollar from the Makar extension. Now here's where this gets really interesting for Maple Leafs fans. The same scout who predicted Necas won't finish the season in Colorado specifically mentioned Toronto as a potential destination. I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to trading him, at least as a rental, I'd be keeping an eye on the Toronto Maple Leafs and the New York Rangers, the source said. I know both teams considered him when he was in Carolina, but I'm not sure if they've revisited him since he was traded to Colorado. Let's think about what Necas would bring to Toronto. He's a 26-year-old forward with elite speed, creativity, and offensive upside. This season with Colorado, he's been productive and shown he can play at center or wing, the kind of positional versatility that Brad Treliving loves. Toronto desperately needs secondary scoring behind their big three, and Necas could provide exactly that kind of dynamic offensive element. But here's the crucial question. Would Toronto pursue Necas as a rental for playoffs, or would they try to sign him to an extension as part of the trade? That's where things get complicated. The Leafs are already tight against the cap, and adding Necas even at his current $6.5 million cap hit would require significant maneuvering. And if they're committing to an extension in the $8 to $10 million range, That has massive implications for their ability to re-sign other players and manage the roster long-term. The other team mentioned prominently is the New York Rangers. This is particularly interesting because the Rangers are dealing with their own drama right now. Artemi Panarin is one of the other major UFAs set to hit the market in 2026, and according to this report, he and the Rangers are well apart in contract negotiations. If New York can't lock up Panarin, does acquiring Necas become their plan B? That's a fascinating possibility. The scout also mentioned the Anaheim Ducks as a potential wild card, literally, since they're fighting for a playoff spot. Another team that might be in the wild card race is the Anaheim Ducks. The source said they have plenty of cap space, $12.9 million, right now. But the issue is that Cutter Gauthier and Leo Carlsson are also up after the season. Still, they have a lot of prospects to offer. That's an intriguing scenario. Anaheim is young, they're improving, and they have the assets and cap space to make a big move. Adding Necas could accelerate their timeline and give their young stars like Trevor Zegras, Gauthier, and Carlson a legitimate top-line talent to play with. The Ducks have been patient in their rebuild. But at some point, you need to start adding established talent to complement your youth movement. The report also mentions teams that could acquire Necas with an extension already in place. The Philadelphia Flyers and San Jose Sharks were specifically named, both with approximately $6.6 million in current cap space. These are rebuilding teams that could afford to take on a longer-term commitment to Necas as part of their plans to eventually contend. For Philadelphia especially, adding a player of Necas' caliber will be a significant step in their competitive rebuild. Now, let's address what Necas himself is saying about all this. He's understandably frustrated by the constant trade speculation. Before scoring 2 goals in Colorado's 4-1 victory over the Los Angeles Kings on Tuesday night, Necas told the Denver Gazette, "Obviously, I saw it, and it doesn't surprise me. There's so much I see out there that's not true. What more can I do about it? Nothing really, right? It's annoying to hear these things, but you know deep down what the truth is, and you don't need to prove that to anyone. I totally understand where Necas is coming from. It must be incredibly distracting to have your name constantly in trade rumors, especially when you're trying to focus on playing hockey and helping your team win." And both Necas and the Avalanche have publicly stated they want to explore ways to make an extension work. That's genuine. I believe both sides would prefer to find a solution that keeps him in Denver. But here's the harsh reality. Wanting something and being able to afford are two very different things. The Avalanche's front office, led by Chris McFarland, has to make hard decisions based on financial realities, not wishes. And the financial reality is that they need to prioritize Cale Makar above everything else. Makar is a generational talent, a franchise cornerstone, a player you absolutely cannot lose. If keeping Necas jeopardizes their ability to lock up Makar long-term, then Necas has to go. It's that simple. Let's talk about the broader context of the UFA market for 2026. At the beginning of this season, it looked like it could be one of the most star-studded free agent classes in recent memory. Connor McDavid, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Martin Necas, Artemi Panarin, Adrian Kemp. These are elite talents who would transform any roster. But this week, we've seen that market shrink dramatically. McDavid signed a 2-year, $25 million extension with Edmonton. Kyle Connor inked an 8-year, $96 million deal with Winnipeg. Jack Eichel is expected to re-sign with Vegas. Reports suggest the Los Angeles Kings are close to extending Adrian Kemp. Suddenly, what looked like a buyer's market with multiple superstars available has become much thinner. That actually works in Necas' favor. If there are fewer elite options available, the teams that miss out on extending their own stars will be even more desperate to acquire someone like Necas. This is where Toronto's situation gets really interesting. The Maple Leafs have their own potential UFAs to worry about. Mitch Marner becomes unrestricted after this season, and there's been endless speculation about whether he'll re-sign or test free agency. If Toronto loses Marner and can't replace that production, they'll be desperate for offensive firepower.